Hi everyone, this is just a quick video to help you in writing a practice essay. Over the holidays I had a few of you shoot through some of your work, but I thought what would be helpful would be to go through the whole process of annotating a prompt and organising how to attack it, and then giving you some help as to how to get this essay started. So what this is going to do today is talk through how to annotate a prompt, work out how to attack it, but then also I'm going to give you a plan for which you're going to write an essay. So because all of the planning, all of the thinking is going to be done for you, you'll be able to, you'll be able to go ahead and write the rest of this essay. I'm hoping you'll be able to get it done during this period. If not, I want you to get it done as homework and send it through to me as soon as possible. This is going to be really good preparation for the SAC that's going to be next week. So the first thing that we need to do is annotate the prompt itself. So we've got this is the second prompt from the two that I gave you as holiday homework to look at. So the first thing we need to do when we're annotating the prompt is to identify the content words. So we've got the prompt here. General Steinbed shows how war alienates soldiers from each other and the civilian population discuss. So we're obviously talking about the text. Of course, we're talking about war. The central idea of this is this word alienates, but we're also looking at how soldiers from each other and the civilian population. Now, automatically, we should start thinking about what those words mean. We'll get into that in a second, but you should already have some ideas as to what that means. So, the next thing, according to that sheet that we were looking at, was to look at the direction words. So this tells us what we're supposed to do with this particular prompt. And that is, of course, to discuss. Don't forget that discussing is showing both sides. So we're showing both sides of the argument. We're not just showing that, yes, indeed, it alienates soldiers from each other and civilian population. You've got to find how that is limited. Okay. Now, the next thing that the big A3 sheet of paper asks us to do is to rephrase the prompt. I'm not going to bother doing that because, as I showed you in class, the step that I like to take is to interrogate or to ask questions of this prompt. So if we're asking questions, I'm going to put this into green. During this process of asking questions, we're also looking for synonyms as well. So for alienates, we'd be looking at word like or phrases puts a strain on, or separates, or estranges. So it's looking at separating those two things. So we're looking at, when we look at the other content words, we're looking at soldiers being separated from each other and the civilian population being separated from the soldiers. Now, if we're thinking about soldiers from each other, we need to start thinking about what kinds of events or themes we might be looking at there. So, soldiers being separated from each other, let's think of cases that this happens and doesn't happen. Now, times that this happens, one of the biggest events that we keep coming back to is Brownie being shot. What you might remember is when Brownie's shot, the immediate focus for the soldiers is who gets the sugar or who's dividing up the sugar. So it shows us that those two, that the soldiers are alienated from each other. It's not a human response. In saying that, The word of the study of this text is dehumanization. Separating people that belong together is a dehumanizing effect of the war. So we need to think about that. However, there's some limitations with this. The times that it doesn't happen is something that we need to think about as well. So the times that soldiers are actually pulled together and not driven apart is something that's going to show the limitation of this. That means that we're going to be discussing both sides. We're showing how it happens and how it doesn't happen. So one of the instances of when the soldiers get united in the war, I would think about Broadbent. So Broadbent's death is a moment where this doesn't happen. We see that the two men in the trench are comforting, well, we see our narrator is comforting Broadbent until he passes away. So that's a sign of when the war actually brings people together, and it's quite humanizing as well. Or we could even say it's rehumanizing. Okay. So I've got 2 points there. Obviously, we could go in a whole bunch of other directions with it as well, but I reckon 2 for the moment is fine. Now, I'm trying to just zoom out there. Maybe I can't. I'm going to go with the civilian population now and think about how the civilian population also alienates itself from the soldiers. Now, there's a couple of things we could talk about here. One of them is London. That whole chapter where our narrator goes to London shows the differences in opinion and the differences of attitudes to war between the soldiers and the civilians. That's a really poignant or important aspect to grasp in this. Connected to this will be the character of Gladys, because she is the epitome of the civilian understanding of the war. Remember, there's that classic conversation they have about whether he's actually killed someone or not. Or sorry, not killed, but murdered someone. Something else we could think about is where this story starts. In Montreal. Remember, in Montreal, when the soldiers are moving from Canada to the war, we have this sense that the civilians were celebrating them moving off, but that the soldiers themselves were feeling quite queasy. And we have a sense of them being ripped away from home. Okay. Now, if we were to think about this even further, which of course you want to do, we can think about how these themes come through in these separate discussions that we've got going on here. So in London with Gladys, I'm just going to put the themes in red. For London with Gladys, we've got class difference. For Montreal, it's a loss of innocence, isn't it? Brownie being shot, we've got loss of innocence again. And Broadbent's death, we could say that's loss of innocence as well, couldn't we? Now, if you remember, one of the other themes that we have, of course, is in here. It's war. Now, it's really hard to talk about this text without talking about the war as well. So the war is obviously going to be a theme that you're relying on heavily. But those other ones, class difference, loss of innocence, there's enough there that you'd be able to write a whole essay on. Our job now is to look at these bits and pieces, the different aspects that we're actually going to be talking about in our essay. And we now need to find some quotes, some evidence from the text to be able to help us out with this. Now, to do that, don't forget you've got that whole document that we worked on together that looks at quotes and analysis of those quotes to help you out with this. So what I want you to do, I'm going to put some suggested quotes in there, but I don't want you to stop there. If there's another idea that you want us to develop further that uses a different quote, absolutely go for it. So your job now is to essentially take the information I've given you here and the plan that I'm going to give you as well and have a crack at actually writing a whole essay out. Guys, it's really good practice to try and get this done within a timed time frame as well. So please make sure that you have a go at that. All right, thanks guys.